within 24 hours of the meeting. Would remote participants please use their hands up icon in Teams to indicate they have a question? Please turn on your camera and microphone when addressing the committee and off when you're not speaking. Would members and officers please remember to switch off their microphone on when speaking and off when they're finished speaking. Please speak directly in the microphone. Switch off mobile phones or put on silent mode. Can I? That?
It's the online.
Oh, it's the online bit. Oh. Okay, I'll go on the agenda proper now. Any apologies for absence tonight?
Sure, an apology has been received from Councillor Masood, John.
That's it, Masood, yeah. Minutes of the 27th of July. Are you okay with those? And I'll sign them. Okay. Section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act. Any declarations? Are there any disclosures of interest tonight? Councillor Hussain? Mahmood Hussain?
I'm not sure, but I think the Imam Chishti, as we all know him in this chamber, and I've seen a gentleman sitting in the back, his son, so I know him, but that's all I can, declare.
I think, yeah, everybody knows it. Yeah, we'll get a ruling on that.
Yeah, it boils down to, and members will know how well they know him or them, and it's whether it's more than a mere acquaintance or actually someone that you would regard as someone that you've got an actual relationship stroke friendship with. So if it falls into the latter category, I would say that's therefore more of a personal interest, and then I would say prejudicial, because the knowledge of that person is more than just knowledge. It's actually having an association with that person. But if it's not a friendship or that kind of relationship, or it's not a family relationship, for example, then I would say that isn't a personal and prejudicial interest. So I don't know how well you know these people, only you know that. So only you, I say you collectively because of what Councillor Hussain said. So depending how well you know that person, it will then determine whether you believe you have an interest or not.
He's not a personal. What's he on about? He's not a personal friend, but everybody in this room knows Mr. Chishti and he's his son, including you, Chair, and every member of this council. So yeah. He's an imam in a predominantly a major Muslim institution, so we all know him, and that's what I'm declaring. But I do know his son because he's there in a number of times when we've gone for prayers or a funeral.
So do you want to declare? Do you want to declare it?
Not a personal friend.
Do you want to
I'm not even sure if he's an applicant or not.
Yeah.
Chair, that's not quite true. Actually, I don't know the guy. Never met him.
Neither have I, Chair.
Sorry, Lee. Yeah. So do you want to? You want to declare a personal interest, but not prejudicial interest? Yeah, no personal interest. You don't want to declare a personal interest? Yeah, please.
If I may, Chairman. So there's two prongs to an interest. The personal interest only becomes prejudicial if someone looking from the outside in, from an objective position, would think, oh, actually, that relationship is so significant that it would affect your ability to make a decision purely in the public interest. So personal interest means if you declare just a personal interest, that means you can stay. But if it's a prejudicial, then you can't take part. But it's only prejudicial based on what people with knowledge would think of your relationship. But only you know how important, close, frequent and so on that relationship actually is. So only you can make the decision as to whether someone looking in would regard it as prejudicial. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, but
Chair.
the question arises here is that whether he's the applicant or not. So we don't know.
Chair, I'm looking in.
So
and I
he's
think it's
in public
prejudicial.
gallery, so he's entitled to sit there. So we're just trying to tell that sorry.
Do we know who the applicant is?
The applicant's Mr. Hussain. That's all it says on item number 7.
Clear that I know him, but in personal term, but not prejudicial.
The personal,
Yes,
declaration of interest.
that's all I declare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Is that clear?
up to you,
And I
based on my advice.
take an exception to the. I take an
Councillor Campbell,
exception
quiet,
to
please.
Councillor Campbell's remarks. I do take an exception. You, Chair, it's a public meeting and he's making a disgusting remarks. And I think that should not be tolerated, regardless who the person is, whether he's a member of the council or not. He's making all sort of slurs and that he should not do that.
I've not allowed him to speak yet, and
Chair, can I speak? If you know someone and you speak, sorry,
Just to add, I've seen other members nodding along the lines of what Councillor Hussain has said. However, bearing in mind we're online as well, if everyone, well, it's up to you, but everyone should declare an interest if that's what they want to do, rather than just nodding and agreeing with what Councillor Hussain said. So if others, Councillor Kirshen, for example, want to say something, then they should say it as well, rather than just agreeing with what Councillor Hussain said, so we know exactly where everyone stands. Okay. Thank you,
it's
Chairman.
up to the individual to declare an interest, not for anybody else to tell them that they can declare an interest or not. Sir Campbell, you wish to speak?
what I'm saying is that if you know someone, there it is, it's on. I can't hear you half the time. What I'm saying is if you know someone and you talk to them, right, it is a possibility that you could have discussed this, right? And people looking in might think that. So if somebody says, I know the person, but not prejudicial, you're taking that person's word for it. I'm sorry. It's got to be down the middle. You either know them or you don't know them, right? If you know them, it can be prejudicial.
It's up to the individual members. Councillor Ali?
Chair, I mean, just on my observations there, I don't think it would surmount to well, personally on my part, I don't think it's a personal interest, because it's if we're talking about going to prayer or mosque or anything, that's a public area, you know, it's for the community, so it's not exactly just for you specifically. Otherwise, you know, anybody that has attendance in churches or places of prayer would have to declare interest, and I think the person we're talking about is a community leader, so how many people would not know of him? Obviously, a few don't, but for the vast majority, people would know of him.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor. That's a very good analogy. And the way I would view it, I believe, in my mind, is you're right. There's a difference between going to a prayer group and someone leading that prayer group versus, for example, if you're, let's say it's the Catholic faith, you know the priest because you go to Mass, but you only know the priest because you're at Mass. Whereas if, for example, you were dealing with the priest, for example, let's say you're a catechist, which are the people that help people through their first Holy Communion, therefore you're more involved with the priest on a more common, general basis behind the scenes. That's just one distinction that I can draw as to that latter example being prejudicial. The former example of going being personal, that's the view I would take. But that's not necessarily, you know how well and what you do with such person and so on. So it's for you to make the decision. That's the obvious distinction I can make at this meeting at this point in time without having forensic details from each and every one of you as to how well you know someone. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there is a members' code of conduct and everyone knows about the code of conduct and sign up to the code of conduct. It's up to individual members to declare an interest, either personal or prejudicial, not for somebody else to tell them you must declare an interest. Councillor Franks.
Some years ago, I lived next door to a man who was the managing director of a construction company, which occasionally tendered for council business. And I had an agreement with him that he would always tell me when he was tendering for council business. And if it came up at any meeting that I was involved in, I declared an interest and left, even though I had no interest in him or his business. Didn't even like the bloke, to be perfectly fair. But because I thought it would look as though I should declare an interest, I did. The lesson that I learned from that is, if there is any doubt about whether your interest is prejudicial or not, then you should declare it and leave.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Are there any other declarations of interest?
It's a similar case, the Imam Chishti Sahib is one of the mostly Imam in my ward, and time to time I do for the prayer, especially funeral prayer. So I know him as an Imam, he's as my ward Imam, but I don't have a personal relationship, and I don't know his son. First time I heard about his son sitting here, I don't know anything about his son.
Are you declaring an interest, personal or prejudicial?
I seek advice from the solicitor. If things that I shouldn't be participating, then I declare my personal interest and I don't take part in that item.
A personal interest, but not a prejudicial interest. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, Roger.
Thank you, Chair. As Kashif and other colleagues said, I know Imam Sahib because we went there for prayer, same like other mosques I went, and other priest I know as a community, as our prayer area, and he's doing funeral and everything. But till now, I don't know. Just Hussein mentioned, like his son is applicant and all that. So I don't know him. I just know him, Imam, and till now, he just mentioned it. Before that, I don't know who is applicant. So just personal.
You declaring a personal interest. Yeah, that will be duly recorded. Any other declarations of interest tonight? Councillor Ali.
Chair, just moving away from the topic area just for a second. Whilst I was in college, I had some knowledge of this particular site. I can't go into too much detail. There was some police involvement. However, I think just for the record, at that time, I don't think it's a personal interest or anything. I mean, we're talking about a good 25 years ago now. But I knew of this site and some of the things that were going on in there. It just needs, I don't think it's a personal interest, but I thought I'll mention it and have it recorded.
It's also important to ask if any member has been lobbied by the applicant. No?
I've met the applicant, Hussein, once or twice in the past, just very briefly. So I wasn't aware of that he's the applicant. So I must declare that I've known him, that he's Chishti Sahib's sons, but I didn't know that he was the applicant. And I've seen him briefly about, I think, good couple of years ago. That's all. Nothing.
Yeah, we've established he's the applicant. Do you wish to declare an interest?
Sorry?
Do you wish to declare an interest?
No, there's no interest.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll go on to the application now, the first one. I'll find a page. There's Land Rearer number 68 to 76 Wardown Crescent, page 12 to 38. There's Gemma Clark.
The applicant has provided some additional information which was mentioned in the update reports. The ecology update was received today and essentially does not change the LPA's position with regards to the scheme. The ecology officer shall provide an update at the end of my presentation. The application site is located on land to the rear of 68 to 76 Wardown Crescent. The site is located within a designated district wildlife site within the Luton local plan. The application seeks to erect a 4-bedroom dwelling house. The site has a long planning history, including 5 applications refused for the erection of a bungalow, 3 of which were taken to appeal and dismissed. More recently, there have been pre-application inquiries in 2013, 14 and 2021. Each response has consistently stated that the principle of a residential development is unacceptable. The previous reasons for refusal relate to the development not being in accordance with the land allocated in the local plan, unsatisfactory access, backland development, and impact on neighbours. Next slide, please. The National Planning Policy Framework, Natural Environment and Rural Communities Act and the Environment Act place great importance on biodiversity and that planning decisions should contribute to and enhance sites of biodiversity. These are also reflected within the Luton Local Plan policies, LP 27, 28 and 29. The plan on the left shows red triangles which indicate the trees to be removed. The trees are significant and well established within the surrounding landscape due to the location high up on a hillside. They're considered to be a prominent feature of the area and visible to the public. Our tree consultant has visited the site and doesn't agree with the tree categorisations within the applicant's arboricultural report. Further, in terms of the layout, it is unlikely to be achievable without significant level changes and construction within the root protection area of tree number T14. The applicant has suggested removing this tree. However, it is a prominent specimen and should be retained. The tree consultant therefore objects to the proposal and has suggested that T2, T14 and T15 should be protected by a TPO. This has now been served on the applicant. The agent has since submitted further information. However, it is concluded that this group of trees are a valuable landscape asset to the local and wider area. The development will require the removal of several trees within the group, diminishing its value to the public. The clearance of the site prior to any form of survey has destroyed the wooded habitat and any species associated with it before it could be assessed. Therefore, it is not possible to mitigate what has been lost other than the reference to the district wildlife citations, and it suggested that the site was wooded except for small clearings. It is simply not possible to improve the ecology of the site when it is substantially part of a development. The fact that the site was previously a secondary woodland suggests that if left undeveloped, it would immediately start to regenerate. In the fullness of time, would become a new wood. The ecology officer still regards the remaining trees in the district wildlife site to be subject to this designation, despite the clearance. Given these objections and a TPO recommendation, the additional reports do not alter the fact that the scheme is considered to be detrimental to the biodiversity and natural conservation of the district wildlife sites. Next slide, please. This slide indicates the floor plan of the ground and first floor. It shows a number of windows on the western elevation facing towards the adjoining properties. These windows are served by habitable rooms on the first floor. Therefore, concerns arise regards to privacy and overlooking. This concern is also heightened by the use of balconies on the first floor lounge. Next slide, please. This slide indicates the second floor and the roof plan of the proposal, and again shows balconies to the master ensuite, allowing for direct overlooking into the rear private amenity space of the neighbouring properties. Whilst it is noted that the development would offer a large family dwelling, the proposal was considered to have a negative impact on the neighbouring properties by reason of overlooking and loss of privacy. Next slide, please. This slide shows the level differences on site. The properties most likely to be affected by the development are 66 to 76 Wardown Crescent. It is noted that owing to the steep gradient of the site, the development, especially being 2 and 3 stories in height, will be located on considerably higher ground than the surrounding properties. The tree removal plan also indicates that a number of the trees along the boundary will be removed. Therefore, the development will appear visually dominant when viewed from these properties. Highways have reported that the application has addressed some of the concerns raised at pre-app stage. However, concerns still remain regarding the steep gradient of the road. The gradient is excessive and will be problematic in slippery conditions. There is also concerns that the gradient may encourage inappropriate speeding, representing a danger to highway users. Next slide, please. This slide shows the elevational plans of the development. The development proposes a detached dwelling of modern design and shows balconies on the first and second floors. By virtue of its siting and layout, the proposal will constitute backland development, an unsympathetic form of development within the district wildlife site. In conclusion, the site has a long planning history, including 5 refused applications, 3 of which were dismissed at appeal. The local planning authority have been consistent in their approach to protect the land from residential development, and the current proposal is not considered to overcome the previous reasons for refusal. By virtue of its siting and location, the proposed dwelling is considered to lead to an unacceptable loss of the district wildlife site, detrimental to biodiversity and natural conservation within the well-established character of the area. Further, it would have a detrimental impact on the adjoining properties by virtue of overlooking and loss of privacy, as well as highways concerns. Therefore, it is recommended that this application is refused. Trevor wants to say his part now.
Thank you, Gemma. Is there any questions by members? I'll do that now. Just questions, then we'll get comments later on. Okay, question, please. Sorry.
Okay, can I ask you, in page 21, when the site was being in 28 and 29, when the site was being cleared, was there any council officer visited the site?
I couldn't hear you, sorry. Can you repeat?
Right. When the site was being cleared, was any council officer had visited the site?
When the site was cleared?
Yes. And was there any trees removed? Do we know?
Yes.
Yes, because that's what it says in the
Yeah.
report, that most of the woodland and the area was cleared completely. Have I got that right? Yeah. Yeah. Because the reason I'm asking you, I'm familiar with the entrance to that site, and there was a huge amount of dumping cars and that years ago. I'm not seen the site for many, many years, but I used to have a friend living there in Bourdown Crescent in that corner.
There was an enforcement involvement regarding cars. But yeah, that was back in 91, not recently on this application.
Dumped cars were there. My friend used to ring me up quite regularly that there was dumped car and burnt cars in that area that I'm aware of, where the entrance to the site is itself. Yes, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just a question, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chair. Yes. So you stated that it will be impact on character of the area, but it's not been, would you like to enhance on this point, that how it's going to be impacted on the area? So you have to make that decision.
I think that might be a question for Trevor. It links to the wider ecology and biodiversity of the area from Bradgers Hill all the way through to another area that Trevor will be more aware of, but it's to do with the wider area in terms of the biodiversity.
Yeah, I'm going to bring Trevor in after members have asked questions.
I'm asking because I'm not familiar with the area, so it will be difficult to make a decision without being familiar with the area and how the officers saying that it's going to impact on the environment. So that I want to understand.
You didn't visit the area when we had the visit. Have you visited yourself? You've not visited the site at all?
No, I haven't.
Because we did had an official visit to the site where several members attended.
There was for this one?
received an invitation.
Okay, I missed that one then.
Any further questions? Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Chair. Prior to 2011, when our local plan was put into action, what was the designation of this area?
It was a district wildlife site.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I've got just a couple of things. So when there was I think I read somewhere that there was a council tree officer went there in 2020, was it? I can't remember properly. And they did a tree survey at that time. I think it's referred to as a tempo or something. Since then and now, how come we've put a TPO in there now rather than at that time when that was carried out?
Yeah, I might be able to help you with that question, Councillor Ali. So we place tree preservation orders on trees if we think that they're under threat. So we wouldn't place a tree preservation order on every single tree that we think is worthy of retention. The element of threat, the potential removal, and also advice from our technical experts, in this case, the council's arboriculturalist consultant recommended that these remaining trees were protected.
Okay. No, it's just I was a bit curious because the applicant put in some, as you say, pre-apps in, and then it was only at the last minute we put a TPO in. I just wanted just a bit of understanding on why we left it so late.
Yeah, I think it was the fact that the land had been cleared and it was to protect any other trees that were on site, as the development manager has said, to protect them.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, just one last one. Has the council done any surveys on what wildlife exists or existed before the clearance of the site?
We've got our arboriculturist, Alex Needs, is available, and also Trevor Tween is available. So if you want to ask those questions. Alex, are you online? Alex Needs.
Yes, I am, but I can't seem. Hello there. Yes, I am. I'm here. If you could repeat the question, please, Councillor.
Yeah, sure. So basically what I was asking was there any surveys done from the council side on what wildlife existed or exists currently on the site now?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. My specialism is in trees rather than the wider ecology. I took no party. I wasn't a party of any prior ecological assessment of the site myself. No.
I think unless there's any more questions, because I'll bring in Trevor Tween now. Trevor, are you there?
I am indeed. Can you hear me?
You've heard some of the questions, and if you can enlighten us a bit, please.
Yeah, on that last point, the site was first surveyed by the council, I believe, in 2006 as part of the county wildlife site review that was done at that time, and that survey included the allotments which are to the east of the site and the open land at the top end of Stockingstone Road, and that information was held by the Biological Records Centre. At that time, the district wildlife site system which was the third tier of wildlife site designation, had not been applied across Luton. We realised that that was a potential problem because there are lots of, shall we say, slightly lesser sites that didn't have any designation, and it was regarded as an important additional plank when the sites were resurveyed in
Can I
2012.
stop you there, please? Councillor Kashif Chowdhury, if he leaves the room, he won't be able to take part again. Can you go and get him? Yeah, Kashif, I know you're a new member, but if you leave during the debate, you will not be able to take part when you come back. Okay. So if it's urgent, then okay, it's urgent. But okay, sorry about that. Can you carry on, please, Trevor?
Yeah, indeed. The 2012 was the time when we did most of the evidence gathering and surveys for the current local plan, and that site was resurveyed at that point by the council commissioned that work. Again, the reports went off to the Biological Records Centre in Bedford, and on the basis of that piece of work, the site became, along with the adjoining land, one of our first batch of district wildlife sites. So that was effectively the last piece of work that was done specifically on that land in 2012.
Question to Trevor Tween.
Sorry, just a clarification. I think my question was on what wildlife was observed to be on site.
Well, that's basically a vegetation survey. I mean, normally, if an applicant comes in, in order to try and develop an area, we request the up-to-date information on the specific species that might be found on that site as part of that process. That's not something that we undertake routinely across the borough on any site. There just aren't the resources to look at every single type of creature that there might be on every single open space in Luton. So it wasn't something that was specifically looked at by individual specialists that are required to identify, butterflies or beetles or whatever it happens to be. So if you're looking at if you mean by wildlife just animals, then that work we would only expect to do if the site came under a potential development application.
Any questions by members to Trevor Tween? Oh, you have to wait till we've done that. Okay, no further questions. I'll go to the objector, and then we'll have the applicant. I have a question. Oh, good shout. Carry on. That's my fault now.
I put me on there. Speak out of that. Okay. Question page 17. Can you hear me? Yeah. Station. There were 4 objections, and then you referred us to Appendix 3 for responses. On looking at page 38, which had the Appendix 3, the responses are missed. I don't know which is objected or which one is in support. So I couldn't disaggregate to make sure that I understand. Is it possible to disaggregate in the future, because it doesn't make sense to me who is in support or what this means? It just says noise and disturbance, officer consideration, loss of wildlife corridor, officer consideration. Is that a public response? I'm not too sure. Is that what the public is saying, or this is what the officers are saying?
Would it be useful for me to expand a little bit more on my most recent comments?
If you can answer Councillor Ugly's question.
I can only try. The site, as Gemma had already indicated, was designated as a district wildlife site, as a woodland site. It was part of the corridor of open land that links Bradgers Hill and the wider countryside right the way down to People's Park. So it's a very important kind of thoroughfare for all sorts of wildlife. We are aware, for example, that bats and other species like that use the corridor, and we are very aware that those species would be impacted by the sort of development that has been proposed. There's also the landscape element of the development and the setting, which Gemma's also referred to, and on both of those sort of specialist areas, I suppose, as the officers responsible for looking at these things in detail, our recommendation is that we would not be wanting to go forward with that. In terms of the actual wildlife itself, slightly referring back to the previous question, we have asked for some survey work to be carried out by the applicant, which is what normally happens in these cases, to look at the kinds of species that are themselves protected in law, such as reptiles and bats. And unfortunately, so far, that information hasn't been provided, which makes it very difficult to assess in any great detail the kinds of information that we would like to make sure that we are, ensuring that our legal position on all these things is sound, because not only do we have a specific duty to particular kinds of species like bat roosts and the like, but also we have a general biodiversity duty in law, which requires us to take that into account for all our decision making in terms of planning applications and land management and everything else that the council does. So from the point of view of the specialist officers, there certainly are significant objections to the development, partly on the basis that it is a designated site, but also because the information base that we have at the moment isn't really as comprehensive as we would like to be able to assess the application, or indeed to work out what might be appropriate mitigation if the view of the committee were to allow that development to go ahead.
Okay, thanks for that, Trevor. Any questions? Yeah.
It doesn't answer my question, but what I want to know is, so 9 people are in support and 4 objects. Does that mean the public themselves are in support, and is there technical officers that are against?
I I'm not sure that I know the answer to that. Just as a technical officer, I've not been fully aware of what the public position is.
Trevor, I'll let Sonia answer that question.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to clarify and assist Councillor, just to assist the committee, the reference still can't hear. Can you hear now? Yeah. So just to help you, Councillor, the totals mentioned in the officer report in relation to objections and support are purely reference to public consultation responses by members of the public. It doesn't include officer support or objections.
It says Appendix 2, technical objections were mostly, I think, to the expertise. But my question was that mean it is the public that is in support and the technical people are against? So that I'm clearing my mind what I'm going to vote for.
So you might need to help me here, Councillor Agby.
On page 17, we have technical consultation. It says overwhelming in terms of public in favor. Is that what it means? If you look at paragraph 15 at the top, that it says technical consultation, and it says together received responses, which was mostly objected. But on paragraph 16, out of the 13, 9 was in support and 4 was objection. My question then is, from here, it looks like was the public in support? Is it the technicalities that's caused officers to object to the application?
Well, I think it's a question of that, though, not that they object or for it. They're asked to do a technical consultation, and that's what they've done. You've heard it from Trevor Tween tonight.
Thank you. Yes.
Any further questions to Trevor? Okay, then we'll go on to the request to speak, and we'll deal with the objector, which is Mrs. Anne Lightman. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Good.
So you've got up to 5 minutes to speak, and I'll remind you when you've got a minute left, and then members may wish to ask questions after you've spoken. Okay?
Okay.
So your 5 minutes starts when you do.
Okay. I live at number 27 Mountford Road, which is positioned on the escarpment above and slightly to the south of the proposed development. I have read the officer's report and strongly support the recommendation for refusal. Our neighbours who live at the top of the escarpment also support this refusal. I consider that the reasons for refusal far outweigh the reasons in support, which mainly appears to refer to the area being used for fly tipping and antisocial behaviours. The installation of a security gate further down Woodbury Path has stopped this. This gate is locked and only accessible by residents who have access rights along the path, including ourselves. It does appear the applicant had the site cleared without any due consideration being given to the importance and value of the former woodland. The preservation of the wildlife corridor, along which the proposed development is to be built, we consider is of very significant value to this urban environment. The area of woodland that was cleared offered not only a sanctuary for wildlife, but also a very necessary buffer against strong winds, traffic noise, and pollution over the escarpment. The pollution levels will undoubtedly rise significantly with the introduction of vehicles onto this site. The woodland, before it was stripped, aided the atmosphere by removing carbon dioxide and giving out oxygen. Since the land was cleared, a further plot of land adjacent to the site that is number 25 Mountfield Road, has also been stripped, obviously with the intention of using the land as a building plot and no doubt utilising the new accessway proposed. This has further compromised the wildlife corridor. If this situation is left unchecked, soon there will be no wildlife corridor left in this area. In our opinion, the proposed dwelling is very much out of context and character within its surroundings. The design of the proposed house with 2 to 3 stories will be very visible from our property and from the street level of Wardown Crescent. It is noted that permission for single-storey bungalows on this site have been refused on at least 3 to 4 occasions, and yet this property would be 2 to 3 stories. I hope the councillors will all agree with the officer's report and stop any further development in and around the wildlife corridor and the area be replanted and re-wooded. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions by members to Mrs. Lightman? Councillor Hussain.
Can I ask what I asked the officers as well? When they were clearing the site as residents in the area, did you complain to the council that they were clearing the site completely and removing all the...
I did complain to the council and was told that that nothing could be done by the council until they put in planning permission.
Any other questions? No further questions, Mrs. Lightman. Thank you very much. I'll go down on now to the applicant and the resident in favour. I've got on my sheet proxy applicant. Can you tell me what that means, please? You come forward yet? Yeah. Can you switch your microphone on?
Sorry,
as well, please?
Is that better? The application is in my brother's name, but he's not feeling well. He hasn't been, so I'd prepared the speech, so I was speaking on his behalf.
Okay, oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. No. Oh, the John Pastol, you're present. Okay. So the rules are that it's up to 5 minutes, so you're going to have to share the 5 minutes between you.
We were advised that if the applicant's got 5 minutes and supporter and objector have 5 minutes each. I'm sorry if we got that wrong.
No, it's. I will extend it slightly just to the application itself, but yeah, it's 5 minutes for applicants and 5 minutes for objectors.
Thank you.
So if you had 3 or 4 objectors, they would all share the same 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Okay. So if you want to start.
Can I just, I was reading up on the rules, and although we can't submit any information, it said that you can submit photographs to illustrate what we're going to talk about at the meeting. John, do you mind handing them up to the councillors? I think it's coming together.
I think they're looking at photos.
I think so.
Well, is it Mrs. Lightman's dog? If you switch off your microphone. Could you switch off your microphone, please, so we don't hear the dog? Can somebody help me out of what these pictures are?
Sorry, should I mention it or?
If you want to actually explain them in your
Yeah,
presentation, that's fine.
the first pictures, the first page is the site adjacent, which has had the trees felled, and virtually all the trees have been felled. That's not our site, and I think a lot of it has been confused with our site. So I just wanted to clarify that isn't our site; it's the site next door.
No, we saw that. We actually walked through that site because we weren't quite sure where the entrance and exit to the applicant site was. So we saw that, but our main interest is in the application site, which we walked along the rough road to see the site.
Yeah, a lot has been said that we've stripped
those
the ground.
Those that visited are aware of these pictures.
The second pictures are of Mrs. Lightman's plot, which is next door. She's very concerned about the wildlife, but her own site, this isn't a slur or anything, but the condition of her own site and the rubbish and the smashed cars and the gas bottles and the tires, that's a reflection of if she's really concerned about the wildlife, the first place would be to start at home.
How disgusting.
I think that we're only really focusing on the current site, where the application is concerned about development on
Thank you.
At this particular location. Okay, so if you want to start your presentation.
Perfect. Can I just start? Sorry, yeah, should I start? Should I go?
Yes, your 5 minutes start when.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd just like to say for the record, a lot was discussed right at the beginning about Imam Qazi. He's not the applicant. I'm and my brother are, and I have never have any relationship with any councillor. I don't know them personally. Anyone on the Development Control Committee, I do not know any of them. Yes, if I'm in a Friday prayer or something and they shake my hand, I will definitely shake their hand back. If I meet them on the street, I'll shake their hand. I have no personal knowledge of any of them. I wouldn't know where they lived or what their situation is. So I just wanted to make that clear. Coming now to the actual application, I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak this evening. We believe this application is an opportunity to enhance and improve an existing wildlife site while providing a new family dwelling for a local resident. The design has been carefully considered to maximize the site's potential in terms of development while significantly enhancing the landscape and the surrounding wildlife. We would like to note that while the application is labelled land to the rear of 68 to 76 Wardown Crescent, this is for identification purposes only, and the site's address would be Woodbury Hill Path. As such, the application should be considered in the context of similar individual large dwellings located along this road and not the more formal arrangement of properties on Wardown Crescent. Therefore, the design approach is consistent with the individual houses along Woodbury Hill Path, such as the application for 2 contemporary homes approved in 2020 by this very committee. Although being adjacent sites, the approach and response to these applications have been very different. We are not asking for a favour or preferential treatment for the committee members, just for the application to be treated fairly and equally in accordance with Luton Borough Council's Equality Charter. While the officer's report dismisses the similarities, I would like to highlight the identical facts between the 2 applications. Both sites are on Woodbury Hill Path. Both sites are behind properties of Wardown Crescent. Both sites are accessed through the narrow street access road. Both sites are of a modern design. Both sites are located in a sensitive location, be it ours is considerably less. Previous applications have been refused for the following reasons: unsatisfactory access to the site. With the pre-application received from Highways and the subsequent submission, it is clear that these previous concerns have been addressed, and the Highways Department has proposed a condition to be added to any approval. The Fire Department also supports this scheme, as following their consultation, they have confirmed no concerns over access. Overlooking backland development without adequate frontage. As has already been mentioned, the site's address would be Woodbury Hill Path. None of the houses along this road have adequate frontage. Therefore, the proposal is in line with the surrounding context. Area primarily located for public open space and having great landscaping value. The site has always been in private ownership and as such will never be a public open space. The proposal and supporting reports demonstrate how, with additional planting and improvement over the existing trees, this proposal would definitely enhance positively the broader landscaping value. For the reasons above, we believe the application fundamentally differs from previous applications. We do not dispute that the site is within a district wildlife site, but outside the AGLV. We have continued to be open to discussions on improving and enhancing the wildlife around the development. To support the application, we have provided 2 independent ecology reports and 2 independent arboricultural reports, all 4 of which illustrate that and highlight how we will enhance the planted landscape's quality and enhance the existing biodiversity by creating new and improved habitats. Following comments from the LPA ecology officer, our ecology reports explicitly include searches for bats, insects, reptiles, small mammals, badgers, birds, and any impact the proposal would have. The Luton local plan, implemented in 2017, clearly states at point 10.27 that there are 3 tiers of biodiversity. SSIs are tier 1, county wildlife sites are tier 2, and district wildlife sites are the lowest tier, tier 3. Earlier in the local plan at 10.16, landscapes are given a tier category, and an AGLV is categorized into tier 1. We would question why permission was previously granted on Woodbury Hill Park for 2 properties.
Minute left.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. As highlighted earlier, without such reports required, we would be happy for a condition on detailed landscape design to be added to any approval so the council and committee members feel comfortable that the wildlife habitats and greater visual amenity of the site are maintained. We understand that this decision requires careful consideration. As such, we have provided over and above the information necessary for a typical application to assure that all elements have been carefully considered. For these reasons, we feel the application is approvable and will enhance the local context for both the public and wildlife. A library without books is not a library, it's a building. A wildlife site without the elements of wildlife is just a site. We wish to enhance this site. We chose this site because of the wildlife. We're not looking to destroy it. Not a single tree was felled. We have not dropped a single tree on site, yet we have been tainted by the LPA tree officer, suggesting we have done that. In the picture 3 clearly shows you from the BRMC data.
Can you wind up now, please?
Yeah, it shows you that the area is not woodland. It's clearly in that picture, it's clearly designated outside woodland, and woodland was never there. That's the BRMC, not us. Thank you for your time.
Any questions? Can I start with a question? That you're the owner of this piece of land?
Yes.
Yeah. And did you seek any pre-planning advice?
Yes, we did.
What was that advice?
The advice was that if you were to submit a planning application, an ecology report would be required, a transport survey would be required, and ecology survey would be required, an arboricultural assessment would be required, and we supplied all of those in the application. At the time, it's now been mentioned that there was a tempo in 2020. That was never declared to us at the time. No one mentioned that. It took 3 months for the pre-application advice to come back. We weren't advised of any tempo. I feel if there was a tempo done at the time, and it would have been highlighted to us. It wasn't. There was no tempo. The tree officer's original comments didn't mention any tempo in 2020. It was only after we submitted our arboricultural report from Bedford Council's TPO officer that all of a sudden it appeared that there was a tempo done in 2020. Prior to that, there was no tempo mentioned, and the tempo that's being mentioned is referring to all the trees. Yet the council's own report simply states that the tree officer requested 3 trees, and they've stated that, but now the tempo is suggesting all the trees.
Yeah, I think you've answered the question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions to the applicants? Councillor Hussain.
Can I ask you what I asked the officers? When did you clear the site, or was the site cleared before you bought it? And was there any? The second part of my question is, was there any council officer visited the site while the site was cleared? If you were the owner at the time the site was cleared.
Absolutely. We purchased the site. The site has been designated by the land registry as a residential site, always has been. From 1939, there was planning permission granted on there, which obviously lapsed. Now, when we went to the site, it was full of, I think we removed, was it 10 skip loads? 10 skip loads of waste from the site was removed. And those 10 skip loads included mattresses, beds, bedding, tires, burnt fridges. We removed all of them. But I reiterate, not a single tree was felled. Not a single tree. We have nominated every single tree that we wish to remove and submitted them that we would like to have these removed. No trees were felled. Yes, there was scrub on the ground, which was full of rubbish and tires and sanitary waste, toilets. We removed them and we cleared the site of bramble and thorn. Trees were not felled in any way, shape or form. There was 2 trees on site, which were from the bank behind our land, which had fallen over on our land. They were removed, but no trees were felled by us, and we had no intention to do so. At the time, we checked the tree preservation register for Luton Borough Council. Nothing in that area was mentioned on that. A council officer visited the site, an enforcement officer. He saw what we were doing, and he said, "You're quite good to carry on. There's no issues." He saw the two felled trees. John may know his name. He saw the 2 felled trees. He saw that they had been uprooted and not chopped down. And he said, "You're not doing anything wrong. If you wanted to, you could remove these trees." We chose not to because we don't want to remove them. If we do have to remove them, we want to be able to replace them with better quality trees.
Councillor Radley.
Thank you, Chair. For me, this is a 4-bedroom, I think. And during your presentation, you mentioned for residents. We've been here and we've had 1-bedrooms that I've been objecting to. So for me, having a 4-bedroom is something that I want to see more of. So I'm a bit, is it for commercial purposes or for a resident, you said?
This is our forever home. This isn't for commercial. We have tried our absolute best. We're planning to spend over £1 million. Just the sedum roof to enhance the biodiversity. We put a sedum roof, which is quadruple the cost, just so birds, bees, etc. can, where the ground, the footprint is being covered, the roof is slanted and it increases the area for biodiversity. It lands in line with the trees. So if there's butterflies, insects, birds, they will dwell on our roof. They will make that their environment. And we're spending quadruple the money for that. We want to live there. I'm not against nature. We love nature. This is a forever home for my children to grow up in and me to have grandchildren in. It's as simple as that.
Any further questions to the applicant? Councillor Campbell, Councillor Abbey.
You made a statement that since 1939 it was designated for building land. In the document it says here, page 13, number 4, the site has long planning history dating back to 1940 and all plans have been refused, went to appeal, been dismissed, etc. You also made a lot of comment about diversity and wildlife and everything. And everything in this document, this area is a wildlife documented area from day one. There is nothing in this document that says that it has ever been for planning, for housing. You keep on about you never cleared anything. I've been to the site was cleared. I don't care what you want to tell.
Question, please.
The site was, you did clear the site. Now, due to the fact, right, can you tell me where in 1939 it said that it was for building? Have you got proof of that?
Yes, absolutely, I have proof. I have the inspector's report, for the last refusal. Bear in mind that the planning officer in their report has said it's had 4 refusals. The first of those was 80 years ago. The last of those was 30 years ago. A lot had happened in planning law. You couldn't have an extension on your house, but now you obviously can with permitted development. But
you said 1939 it was designated for building. In 1940, every application since then has been refused, it's been to appeal, and it's been dismissed. Proof that since 1939 it was.
The proof is in the inspectorate report. In 1939, the property was granted dwelling status under the bylaws at the time. Then the war came, and the gentleman who wished to build the property went to fight the war and died. The permission lapsed. Then it went to planning permission, and our application is materially different. And if you want me to give the reasons why it's materially different, I'll gladly do so with the evidence. This is the application, and I will verbatim, I will give you the inspectorate's response. With regards to any rights of access to the private right of way, your client could not produce any evidence to show that such rights exist. From the evidence presented to me at the inquiry, from the written representations received from and my subsequent inspection of the site and the surrounding area, I am of the opinion that the decision in this case rests on whether a satisfactory means of access could be provided. So this is the planning inspectorate saying, I'm not giving you permission. It is reliant on access, and you can't prove that you have access. He adds, the council also considered that the proposal would detract from the amenity of the surrounding area by reason of loss of privacy caused by overlooking the site. The site is well elevated above the properties in Wardown Crescent, the ground level of the site being roughly on the same level as the ridges of the two-storey properties on the lower ground. However, bearing in mind the fact that the site is separated from the rear garden areas of those properties by the private right of way, I am satisfied that by careful design, with particular attention paid to siting and orientation, the boundary screening, the standard of privacy currently enjoyed by the properties to the west of the site could be preserved. That's the planning inspectorate. The only point they refused this planning on was the access could not be justified by the applicant because he didn't have the right of way. We have the right of way. The other objection was the privacy. He clearly said that that can be mitigated in any way, shape or form. Okay. And as regards the actual third objection, at that time it was Luton and Dunstable plan, and Luton and Dunstable plan had designated it to be part of the area of great landscape value. It never became an area of grand landscape value. It still isn't today. It's a wildlife site right on the edge of it.
Thank you very much. Sonny, do you want to come in, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just to help members, we've heard a lot about the history of this site and reference to historic permissions from 1939. Just to give members some clarity around that, it's 1947 is the date where the planning acts were first introduced in this country. So anything before that doesn't matter. So it's after that date that has any material impact on what you're considering today.
Councillor Ali.
Chair.
Sorry, I've called Councillor Ali.
I haven't finished.
I've called Councillor Ali now.
No, he made. Sorry, he just brought
I thought
up
your
the
question had been
issue
answered.
that.
Have you got another question then? Have you got another question?
This here, it says 1983, 91, 93. So what you're saying, after that time, it's relevant. And there's been a lot of refusal since then.
Councillor Ali.
Thank you, Chair. You have touched on how you wish to mitigate any wildlife presence there and create an environment there. But can you which is quite interesting on some of the things that you mentioned there. However, can you clarify or further enhance your answer on the three aspects we've got? So, for example, you've touched on the wildlife. What about the character of the area, where our concerns are that what you're building is going to impact on the character of the area and also is going to impact on the neighboring properties?
As I mentioned at the beginning, at the moment, everything is being pointed towards Wardown Crescent. The site isn't Wardown Crescent, it's Woodbury Hill Path. There's a screen of trees there that we have said we would like to replace, not with just any old trees. They will be with species that are from the area and replaced, and that's part of our plan that's been submitted. High quality trees. As regards the mitigation, I've mentioned the sedum roof. We're advising hedgehog highways, bat roosts, nesting boxes, for the wildlife aspect of things, and I didn't quite catch your third.
So basically, I was just because it seems like you've given it quite a lot of thought here. So I was looking at how you were going to mitigate some of the concerns that we've got here on the character of the area and on the neighbouring properties.
Mentioned already in our response that the overlooking is more than triple, I believe, the actual council's own guidelines for overlooking into gardens. I think that's at 13 metres and we're about 35 metres. We mentioned it in our response being one of the points there, and we quoted the relevant guidance by Luton Borough Council. Also, the windows of the property are angled from the side, so they won't be overlooking any gardens. There's screening in the way. You cannot see that plot from Wardown Crescent. It's impossible to view. The members would have visited the site. You can only see the plot from the footpath, Woodbury Hill Path. So I don't think it would have such an impact that's been there. Yes, from a wider, further perspective, but then we are going to be replacing those trees with better quality trees. We're not looking to remove the trees and put a garden fence. We are looking to any tree that's taken out, as per the recommendations, we're looking to replace that tree with equal, if not an increased number of trees, and good quality trees, not saplings or conifers. Indigenous trees, I think, is the word they use for the area. The ecology officer has said that there's many bits and pieces about the wildlife there, but the ecology officer also confirmed that he hadn't even visited the site. He's not been on site. So I don't know where that information has come from. If he's relying on data which is 16 years old, I can't quantify for that. I can only quantify for what's on site and what we've done on site.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no more questions. John Pastol, if you want to come forward, please, and I'll give you a couple of minutes. Well, it was 5 minutes to the applicant and 2 minutes. Yes, my discretion. Yeah, my discretion. Yeah, chair's discretion. Hey, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillors, I would like to build on what Councillor David Agley said earlier about democracy. This committee is convened under the auspices of Democratic Services, and focusing on this democratic aspect, I'm the owner and the resident at 60 Wardown Crescent and have been there for 17 years. I speak on behalf of 21 interested parties, 14 of whom are nearby residents and whose support was submitted with the application. We are all in favour of the proposed single house development. There are two objectors, one at 66 and one at 68. Neither of them are resident in the country, have not been for some considerable length of time, and therefore any development of the property has no impact on their properties or their lifestyle. With regard to previous planning, various people have touched on it. I think if you go back far enough, it even had planning permission in 1914, and the original township developers fully intended this to be a residential site. Many of the subsequent applications were for multiple units, and these were refused, and we all agree that multiple units should not be allowed on that site. With regard to Trees and Wildlife Reserve, I think everything's been said about it. It's absolutely not a wildlife reserve. As a long-standing resident, I cannot agree with the consultant's report. There's no wildlife to speak of other than a fox which wanders through our back gardens, causing a nuisance by defecating and chasing cats. The coloured plan showing the reserve bears no resemblance to the facts on the ground. Most of the area is in fact fenced off.
Okay, can you sum up now, please?
Okay. In conclusion, our considered opinion and democratic desire is for the site to be developed as per the applicant's proposal. This will bring much needed revenue to the LBC as well as tidy up the area with enhanced landscaping. We urge the committee to reject the official's recommendation and approve the proposal in the public interest. Thank you.
Now comments, please. My apologies. Any questions to John Pastol?
The only question I asked the objector as well as the applicant is, as the residents, I mean, when they were clearing the sites, did you approach the council, and was there any dumping that you have noticed prior to that, but particularly on the entrance to the side?
Mr. Chair, it has been an ongoing problem for the last 17 years that I've been there. That we've had run-ins with people on numerous occasions where truckloads of stuff would be dumped up at the site there. And we installed a gate across the road. Subsequently, somebody has now decided to break the lock of the gate, and this was only a few weeks ago. So there is an ongoing history and of people trying to use the site as a fly tipping zone.
Okay. Now we'll go on to comments, please. Councillor Hussain.
I think I'll be very brief in light of so very long question and answer session. As I said right at the when I was questioning the objector as well as the residents and applicant, in terms of the area, and I mentioned late Heather Owen, who lived in that area, who passed away 15 years ago. So what I was talking about was that at the time there was a major issue in terms of the huge amount of dumped car and other things within that area. In light of all what I've heard, and those of us that visited the site, unless they can preserve all the area itself into what it was in terms of the natural site, I cannot see that it will enhance or improve the natural wildlife in the area. And as far as the district wildlife, before the damage was done and removal, all the area was cleared, it was full of, as has been said, that full of all sorts of rubbish from the neighbouring. And once that barrier is removed, then the whole area will never, in my opinion, will come to a district or any wildlife site. So if it can be with the conditions to improve in terms of that, then I will probably not support in the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Kershid.
Thank you, Chair. Hearing my officers and looking at their report based on the previous rejections in the past, I don't think so they've made their case against the applicant, because what happened in past is a past, and we need to move forward from our past, and we need to look at that. Luton is a grave issue of shortages of housing, and how we're going to create those gap, how we're going to fill that 17,000 gap to accommodate our local people. So I think as my fellow councillor has said, that with conditions that if they, as applicant has said, they will enhance the environment, and they will keep in mind that the wildlife has been preserved. So I believe that, I think I can't see that this application should be rejected on any point. Thank you.
Councillor Franks.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There are a number of points I think are worth making here. I think, first of all, what we need to do is look at this comparison with the Woodbury Hill Path site, where a recent application was approved. This is nothing like the Woodbury Hill Path site. The Woodbury Hill Path site is a site where permission was granted for houses to be built following the demolition of a house that was already there. So that is not building on a district wildlife site. It's building on a brownfield site which already had buildings on it. So you mustn't compare the two, because they're completely different. The second point is, It's claimed that Fire and Rescue Service supports the development. They don't. The Fire and Rescue Service does not support developments. What they do is to have a look at plans and decide whether, in the event of a fire, they would be able to deal with it. They looked at this and decided that, yes, they would be able to deal with it. Therefore, they had no objection. That's not the same as supporting the development. It's a very different position indeed. There have been 4 applications refused. On 4 occasions, prospective developers have been told that it was unlikely they would get consent. And on 2 occasions, refusals for development were upheld at appeal. I think that pretty clearly spells out what the planning position is on this site. It is a district wildlife site. Now, I'm not particularly concerned about this bit of the site. My really serious concern is that it is part of a wildlife site, a designated wildlife site, and if this council grants consent for it to be developed, it will be extremely difficult to resist applications for developing on the rest of the wildlife site. And the wildlife site in this case is an extremely valuable facility for the town as a whole. This bit is in private ownership, not unusual. Lots of district wildlife sites are in private ownership. And in fact, if you look a little bit further along this particular district wildlife site, you'll find quite a sizable chunk that's in private ownership of a lady who understands that she's never going to be able to develop it. A lot has been made of the fact that it's a tier 3. Well, look around the town, please. How much tier 1 have we got? About a postage stamp's worth, and that's about all. How much tier 2 have we got? Actually, very little. And doesn't all that make the tier 3 stuff that we have all the more valuable? I believe it does. And I absolutely have to say, you do not enhance a wildlife site by putting buildings on it. Unless I hear something to change my mind, I will certainly be supporting the recommendation.
Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. I definitely will support what David Francis said. I have been to this site, and as long as the history of this site has been a wildlife site, and in the past, we just keep building and building on any open piece of land. Luton is a very small area, 17 square miles. And we keep, the last time I think is Wanton Close. That's another nice green belt we've lost completely because this council think that we should just concrete over anything that's got trees, grass, bramble, whatever. And as this history of this piece of land is all the way across there is designated as a wildlife reserve it's where I live, I get all kinds of wildlife in my back garden. All kinds. I even get ducks in my fish pond. But what I'm saying is that from the start of this meeting tonight, it has been a total and utter shambles. We had to start with, did you have any personal thing to say that you shouldn't be doing? You know the people. You should resign from sitting on this committee on this particular application. But you're saying, oh, you should, for your,
Yeah,
you
can you
should.
stick to the subject, please, Councillor?
I am sticking to the subject.
No,
because
no,
it started with that.
No, by asking people that they should vote, that they should actually
Right,
declare
but what I'm
interest.
saying is, I'm
it's
just
not relevant.
Time, Chair.
It's not relevant.
I'm just saying that's how it started.
Stick to the
Now on this
You're
application.
letting him do it.
On this application, everything in it has said that this land should not be developed on because it is all to do with conservation, wildlife. We're living in a world where we're having climate change, etc. And all you want to do is concrete over anything that's got trees or greenery in this town. I could go on and on and on and on. We're building tower blocks all over the place, not enough doctors' surgeries in this town. The drainage system in this town is falling apart. And you keep saying that's to do with Thames Water, nothing to do with the council. But we are putting pressure on it. All right? And as I said, I am sick and tired of building over and anything that have greenery in it in this town. We are one of the smallest town for green space, and we keep concreting it over. If you look at it, they're even talking about if you did build on it, where are you going to put the bins? Are you going to slide them down there onto the pavement? You know, it's can't believe it. And I am going to stick with the officer's report that we should refuse this application because history has been there from 1940. Every application has been refused.
Any further comments? Councillor Ali.
Chair, more than a comment, can I just ask a legal position on something that David Franks has touched on? With the remainder, with the rest of the wildlife sites, is there anything that we can as a council put in to prevent any further applications or any further development should this application go through? Is there anything legally that we can put in place?
Thanks, Councillor Ali. I think that's more of a question for me than Stephen. I would say Councillor Franks is absolutely right in what he said. This site is designated in the local plan as a wildlife site. If we grant permission today, we'll undermine the integrity of the entire plan, and we wouldn't be able to resist further development on wildlife sites. And I would, as head of planning, I could go beyond that, and you can extrapolate that to development on employment land, residential, on open space. Really, members have got quite an important decision to make today in terms of upholding the local plan, which the council has adopted and has been supported numerous times by independent inspectors that have made decisions on this site. So hopefully that helps with your question.
Any further questions, comments rather? Did you want to come in again, Sonia?
Thanks, Chair. Just to carry on with what I just said, it really does come down to a balance between the positives and the negatives. It's a planning balance, as always, with planning decisions. And I won't repeat what the clear disadvantages are in terms of the integrity of the local plan if permission is granted. We've heard that. I've just mentioned it. Councillor Franks has mentioned it. Gemma has mentioned it as well. In terms of the positives, the two positives that have been set out today is an extra dwelling and dealing with fly tipping on this site. So in terms of fly tipping, there's separate interventions that the council can make. For instance, on the planning enforcement side, Now, through the consideration of this application, we're aware that this is a vulnerable site where fly tipping takes place. We can ensure that the site is monitored in the future to ensure that if fly tipping does take place, we will pursue what's called a Section 215 notice requiring that the site is cleared up. So we have done that in the past successfully, and we will continue to do that. And now this site has come to our attention. This is something we will focus on. In terms of the additional dwelling, it goes back to what I said about the local plan. The local plan is a spatial adopted plan that sets out for council's spatial policies in the borough. It directs development where we want development, and it resists development where we don't want development. And this is a site where we don't want development because we want to protect the wildlife in the borough, just as much as other sites will be for employment where we want to protect jobs. Other sites will be designated for retail where we want to protect local retail offer for residents. So the local plan is quite an important tool for the council. It's been adopted, and what we can't do is undermine the local plan, because then it becomes free for all. We wouldn't be able to resist development in locations where we wouldn't want those developments. So it's quite an important decision you've got to make. It is your decision, of course, but I just wanted to emphasize that before you make a decision. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. I'll move to the recommendation, and the recommendation is to refuse.
Yeah, could I give notice before you take the vote that I would like my vote recorded in the minutes, please?
Yeah, okay, they'll all be recorded, okay? So the recommendation is refusal that I've moved. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
So we'll go to the vote now, and they'll all be recorded.
Okay, Chair, I'm going to the vote.
So just a reminder, you're voting for the resolution the recommendation to refuse.
Chair, I move to the vote, Chair. Starting with Councillor Adbley, please.
Abstain.
Councillor R. Ahmed.
Against.
Councillor A. Ali.
Fairly difficult one. I'm going to abstain on this.
Councillor Bridgen.
For.
Councillor Campbell. Councillor Chaudhry.
Against.
Councillor Franks.
For.
Councillor M. Hussein.
Against.
Councillor Kershid.
Against.
Councillor Taylor. Chair.
For. The result is 4-all, and I'll use my casting vote for the recommendation to refuse. Yeah. The recommendation, the vote is to refuse. Okay, so planning permission has been refused. Although the applicant has the right to appeal.
Hey! Never going to get it now.
So just
Clear. Yeah, okay. Just a couple of minutes.
Good. I'm interested in this. I'm a politician in waiting.
no, that's the next one.
Is it finished?
Yes,
Oh,
that
next
one.
one. Oh.
How do I get out? Chair?
No, Nyla, we're just having a short break now. All right, then we'll call you.
Turn it off. Only by one though. I'm glad they mentioned it.
Can you put your microphone on mute, please?
That was a personal thing.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
About us. And you know, the whole lot. Because my reading of that is that they're not going to.
For your vote to be recorded, it will be recorded, including.
4 against and abstain.
Yeah,
And the result was 4 all, casting vote, 5-4.
yeah.
Okay, are we ready to reconvene? Oh. Campbell's gone home, and I think
what's going on.
Yeah.
So if Lila's going to present, but if she has trouble, ask her to ring up and put her on speakerphone.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to the next item. That's 3638 Crescent Road. Nyla.
Good
Can you
evening,
hear
Chair.
me?
Yeah,
Oh,
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I just said to Sunny, there may be, it seems to be quite a lot of interference and breakage, so we'll see how we go. If it gets really bad, if you could let me know, and then we'll transfer over to the phone. Hello? Hello?
Ready to go when you are, Nyla.
Okay. This application is subject to a verbal update, seeking amendments to document numbers DC14 and DC15 outlined in condition 2 of the appendix 1. DC14 is amended to DC14 Rev A, and DC15 is amended to DC15 Rev A Part 1, 2, and 3. Comments have been received from the Parks Division since the report was completed, recommending that the following condition be imposed. No works shall be carried out on the site until the following has been submitted in writing to the local planning authority for approval in conjunction with the LBC Parks. An arboricultural method statement in accordance with the arboricultural method statement informative, and second, details of tree protection measures to be installed. The applicant shall arrange a pre-commencement meeting after the installation of the tree protection between the Borough Council and the applicant's project arboriculturist to allow inspection and verification of the protection measures. All works shall be carried out in accordance with the approved details. Reason to safeguard and protect the existing trees on and around the site. The application site, as shown on the site location plan, is a rectangular shaped area of land measuring 0.57 hectares in size. It currently accommodates, Sandra, next picture, please. It currently accommodates a car and van rental facility, a warehouse, in addition to a large area used for open storage. In the local plan, the site is designated as being within a Category B employment area. As per the picture, the site is surrounded mainly by residential properties, but there are commercial properties situated along Crescent Road. Next slide, please. The proposal is seeking 90 residential units in 84 flats and 6 houses in 3 blocks, blocks A, B, and C. Block A is the large U-shaped block on the plan, and it would be ranges in height from 47 stories and would accommodate 71 of the flats within the development. It would also have car parking, cycle spaces, refuse storage, gym, post room, and swimming pool. Block B in the southeast corner of the site would be smaller in height and would consist of 13 flats. And Block C is located to the rear, and this would consist of the 6 3-story townhouses. In terms of the principle of the development, as stated previously, the site is located within Category B employment site, and therefore policy LLP 14B is of relevance. This policy seeks to protect existing employment sites from non-industrial employment uses unless it can be demonstrated that the site has been vacant for at least 12 months with evidence to show active marketing of the site, that suitable alternative accommodation at comparable rents is available, and it can be established that the site is no longer viable for any industrial uses. The site currently has a warehouse and a tiny portable office structure, and it's in use and not vacant. The applicants have provided a detailed justification for the loss of the employment use, which is set out in paragraphs 23 to 30 of the report. The main reasons being that owing to the poor and deteriorated facilities provided on the site and its close proximity to residential properties, it has been challenging to retain both existing tenants on the site and to generate any additional interest. Owing to its close proximity to residential properties, it was classified as a confined amber site under the 2015 Employment Land Review, which hinders its ability to enhance employment use on the site. The site also requires significant investment to an upgrade to perform effectively as an employment site to fulfill future employment needs of the borough. In light of its limited capacity to meet the borough's future employment needs, there is a justification to remove the land from employment use and put it to an alternative use. This is consistent with the MPPF, which seeks to avoid providing long-term protection for sites designated for employment uses where there is no plausible chance that it would be employed for that purposes. In addition, there is previous relevant planning consent, relevant residential consent for 72 flats, which was granted in 2008, which means that in principle, both the loss of employment land and the redevelopment of the site for residential purposes has already been established on site. In terms of the provision of housing, the site would provide a mixture of 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom properties, of which 89% would be 2, 3, and 4 bedroom properties. With respect to the impact on the character and appearance of the surrounding area, the application site is a relatively flat piece of land with a steep tree-lined embankment along the northeastern edge of the site. It is located at the foot of the Hart Hill estate, a prominently steep sloping hill covered with trees that lies within an area designated on the local plan as the Hart Hill area of local landscape importance. The surrounding area consists of a mixture of 3 to 5 story flatted developments to the northwest, 2 to 3 story commercial and residential dwellings to the south, 2 story dwellings and commercial premises to the east, and Victorian and Edwardian houses to the northeast. As set out in the report, the proposal would have some impact on the character of the area, but given its siting against the steep embankment, spatial distances, attractive design, use of high quality materials, it's not considered that it would detract from the overall appearance of the area or the Hart Hill area of local landscape. Moving on to the living environment, as set out in the report, the proposal creates an acceptable living environment for the future occupiers of the development. Again, as set out in the report, the proposal, by virtue of the spatial distance and its relationship with the adjoining properties, it's not considered that it would have an adverse impact on the adjoining properties in terms of loss of visual intrusion, overlooking and loss of privacy, which is a concern raised by a number of residents. With regards to transport and parking implications, the proposal provides 60 car parking spaces under 105 cycle spaces. But again, this is a sustainable location close to the town centre, and therefore it's considered that the parking provided is acceptable. In addition, the Highway Authority has raised no concerns regarding the scheme in terms of transport assessment. Finally, on the issue of affordable housing and developer contributions, as set out in the report, the proposal will provide some contributions, but not all, and these will cover the sum of the transport contributions towards the car club contributions and towards the waste. However, the remaining sum of 500, the total sum that the applicants have provided will be 517,745, of which 503,925 pounds will go towards commuted affordable housing and education purposes. Other matters, the site is surrounded by protected trees, and to ensure that these trees are not damaged, as indicated in the verbal update, there will be a condition imposed requiring further information provided to ensure that the trees are protected. To conclude, for the reasons set out in the report, it is considered that the development comprises a sustainable and high-quality form of development that will not only improve the appearance of the surrounding area, but would provide much-needed family accommodation, making an important contribution towards the regeneration of this area. On that basis, it is recommended that the planning permission is granted, subject to the condition as set out in Appendix A and completion of the Section 106 agreement as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Nyla. Any questions? Councillor Franks.
Yeah, only one. I just want to make sure, because I don't remember reading it in the report, or it may be there, make sure that there will be an overage clause in the Section 106 agreement. So if the development proves to be more profitable than they're predicting, then we'll get more of the 106 stuff.
As I was saying, did you indicate you wish to
Yes,
ask
just clarification in terms of the affordable housing. The amount is it 503,925? Is that between, if I understand it right, between education and affordable, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the remaining sum after taking the car club contributions and the waste, the remaining sum, I think it's 503,000 something, that is going to be between both affordable and education.
Yeah, and the overage clause is in.
And the overage clause, yeah, and the overage clause.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, Layla Mann I was looking for. It was my confusion because the sheet didn't reflect the agenda. It was in the wrong order.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Okay, you've got up to 5 minutes to speak in support of the application.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, you might start there.
Good evening, Chair, members and officers. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant. The site that is the subject of this application has previously secured consent for the provision of 74 residential units, therefore demonstrating that the principle of residential development is acceptable in this case. The scheme seeks an uplift of 16 residential units and is reflective of the consented scheme with respect to both design and layout. The applicants have made a number of changes in order to respond to feedback received and have built a fantastic working relationship with the officers who have collaborated throughout the process and presented a well thought out committee report. The scheme proposed facilitates the redevelopment of previously developed land, well located in the context of surrounding town centre amenities and transport links in line with national and local policy. Whilst the site is allocated as a Category B employment site, the existing use of the site as an open storage facility has been found to result in the continued harm to the amenity of surrounding properties, which sit adjacent to the site's northern, eastern and western boundaries, in terms of both noise and outlook. The site has scored poorly in the Council's Employment Land Review 2015 on this basis, and there are a number of alternative sites throughout the borough where these issues would not arise. The principle of residential development on this site therefore remains acceptable. Officers have confirmed that the design of the development is considered to be of an excellent standard, confirming the proposed height, scale, layout and materials acceptable. With respect to housing mix, 84% of the scheme would comprise family homes in response to identified need, and the proposed mix has been confirmed acceptable by officers and consultees. The proposals also provide acceptable living standards and amenity space for future occupiers in response to local and national requirements, and do not give rise to any adverse impacts on the amenity of adjoining occupiers. Significant improvements to the landscape and biodiversity of the site will also be delivered alongside the proposed layout. The proposals seek to deliver sustainable development through the use of highly energy efficient building fabric. energy efficient lighting, natural ventilation, passive design measures to reduce energy demand, and the provision of photovoltaic panels. The scheme also promotes the use of sustainable modes of transport through the provision of cycle parking significantly in excess of the council standards and the provision of reduced car parking in the context of the site's highly sustainable location. The provision of car and cycle parking throughout the scheme has been confirmed acceptable by both the case officer and Highways Authority. Having read the officers' committee report, it is confirmed that no significant issues have been raised by technical consultees, and the application is recommended for approval by officers. The report concludes that the development comprises a sustainable and high-quality form of development that would not only improve the appearance of the surrounding area, but provide much-needed family accommodation, making an important contribution towards the regeneration of this area. The scheme provides much-needed homes for the town and is delivered in a viable way. The proposals are acceptable in planning terms, and there are no material considerations that would justify a decision other than granting planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. Any questions to the applicant's agent? No, thank you. We'll go on to comments by members. Comments?
Just and simply, I mean, development obviously grows to the station, if I understand it right. You know, in that part, we've already got a number of other developments, but it's the quality that really is, and so is it. I would have liked to add more into affordable housing, but as again, you know, our independent assessor has said that this is the best we're going to get. So this is Sam's story, as we always do. I will support the officer's recommendation.
Yes, I think we're going to get some more of this with building costs and labour costs going through the roof. It won't be the first time we've come across this, nor the last for a long time. Any further questions or comments rather? Any comments? Okay, so the recommendation is to approve. I'll move approval. Seconded. So we'll go to the vote now, Eunice.
Starting with Councillor Agbley.
4.
Councillor R. Ahmed. Oh, gone.
He's gone back on holiday.
Councillor A. Ali. Oh, gone too. Councillor Bridget.
4.
4. 4. 4.
4. Yeah.
Yes.
That's carried. Plan of permission has been granted. Okay, let's go on to the last one now, and that's land to the rear of Luton Retail Park, Kimpton Road. Remember the page now. 7. But, Suzanne Knowles is the officer. Page 70.
Thank you, Chair. This application.
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
No, for some reason my camera is. There we go.
Oh, that'll do.
This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of two-storey buildings to create 5 Class B2 and B8 units, including roof-mounted photovoltaic array with access and servicing arrangements, car parking, landscaping and associated works after partial demolition of the existing retail units on the site. Working through the scheme with the first slide, the application site measures 1.14 hectares in size and is located to the northwest of the Luton Retail Park and to the south of Kimpton Road, approximately 500 metres to the east of Luton.
Yeah, just for everybody's information, the applicant, the planning officer, is virtual, and the voice has gone and yeah, yeah. The reason for the delay is the planning officer is by the internet, and it seems to have frozen on her end. Sunny will continue with the presentation. Yeah, that's bound to bring her back online.
Thank you, Chair. So apologies, I should have been more briefed on this item, but I'll take members through the report. Members have all read the report. The scheme is fairly straightforward. The site is well known to members. It's within the Luton Retail Park. It's currently being used for car parking, and the proposal is to erect two-story buildings, which will be used for B2 and B8. So B2 is general industrial, and B8 is storage. So these are uses that are considered in planning terms to be compatible with the location. The proposals will bring just over 100 new jobs to the local area. We are proposing a legal agreement that a proportion of the new jobs created will be ring-fenced for Lutonians. We can achieve that through the legal agreement. There is no objections to this particular proposal. There is an update which members were circulated yesterday, which updated some of the conditions. Also, by way of a further update, officers have recognised that the local lead flood authority haven't had an opportunity to comment on the amended drawings. They asked for some amendments to the scheme to alleviate flood risk. The applicants responded, but the lead flood authority haven't yet commented. So a further change to the recommendation is, rather than members resolving to grant permission, members resolve to delegate authority to myself to grant permission after the lead flood authority have commented on the application. So that is the presentation. I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Any questions? Lee Bridgen.
Yeah, sorry, it's just about the table presented on page 76, the proposed provision of car parking. It reads as 57, but it's not clear whether there's a text wrapping error there and whether it's actually 57 is correct or whether there's a number missing. We're going from 400 parking spaces to 57, if that's correct. I just want to see confirmation. It's on page 76, yeah. It may be correct. I just want to check that it is correct. So.
Yeah, that appears to be a typo. Thanks for pointing that out, Councillor Bridgen.
What should it be?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
I'd say looking at 400 spaces was the Gypsy Lane retail park, but it's not even that many, is it?
No,
Sue.
I mean,
I think it's 54.
54.
I've just counted them.
thanks, Sandra.
Yes, Chair. I know the site well. I've walked past it on many occasions, and it has been used for off-site airport car parking. So the 400 spaces is literally jam-packed, on top of each other. So the figures are not actually comparable.
Any more questions? And I'll invite the applicant's agent, Adam Cornish. If you can hear me.
Hello. So
Hello.
I'm just turning my camera on. Can you all see me okay?
That's fine, yeah.
Good
So
evening all.
you've got up to 5 minutes to speak, so
Perfect.
whenever you start.
Thank you. Good evening all. My name is Adam and I'm the agent representing the applicant today. The application site is a plot of land to the northwest of Luton Retail Park, which would form a natural extension to the well-established Windmill Trading Estate, which is allocated within the local plan as a Category A employment area. The site comprises a concrete expanse previously used as an industrial site for Vauxhall and more recently as an airport car park related to the nearby airport, which directly competes with the airport car parks run by the council. Development comprises two Class B2, B8 buildings, which are proposed to provide 5 units, delivering some 4,200 square metres. This will provide welcome relief to the pressures of modern industrial floor space in Luton, and crucially will provide much needed employment floor space in a sustainable location close to the strategic road network. Indeed, the local plan identifies that a key issue with employment floor space within the region is that floor space is ageing and is in the need of renewal and replacement. Proposals will provide 5 units with high quality commercial buildings which can meet modern industrial occupier requirements. Buildings highly sustainable and energy efficient, reflected by a BREEAM rating of very good, in excess of the quality requirement for BREEAM good. Regarding design, while recognising the need to be functional, the proposals have stepped away from a more traditional utilitarian approach to such uses. For example, Unit 1, which faces Kimpton Road, creates the appearance of a quality office development with 2-storey glazing. Glazing and cladding have been incorporated to the elevations to create an active and more visually interesting elevations than is the norm for such uses. The roof form has been selected to minimise the overall building height, again given the building's a modern and quality looking appearance. The existing site is a large expanse of concrete with very little ecology and landscaping value. It's therefore important to highlight that the proposed landscaping which features throughout the site. Over 20 trees are proposed, along with 183 square metres of shrub planting, over 400 metres of drought-tolerant turf, and over 60 metres of hedgerows. The majority of this landscaping will be towards Kimpton Road, which will help screen the development and improve the image and attractiveness of the site. Proposed development therefore provides an exciting opportunity to develop an underutilised site within Luton to provide a high quality employment development, help deliver much needed modern industrial floor space in Luton. This is a deliverable development which will show strong private sector investment, along with the creation of 117 full-time jobs, in addition to jobs created in the construction and fit-out process. These elements which should be afforded significant weight in the present time, a time when the economic outlook looks bleak. We urge you to follow Officer's recommendation to approve this development, which can get going in the short term and for the benefits to be realised. Thank you for your time and welcome any questions.
Any questions to Adam? No, thank you very much. Comments? Okay, no comments. Then the recommendation is to approve. So I'll move approval. Is that seconded? And then we'll go to the vote. Eunice?
Okay, Chair. Starting with Councillor Agley.
4.
Councillor Bridget.
4.
Councillor Chowdhury.
4.
Councillor Franks.
4.
Councillor M. Hussain.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4. That's unanimous. So planning permission has been granted with the various conditions. That being the extent of the